Kia ora from Aotearoa, New Zealand. My name is Grace Gordon and I'm a lecturer in Criminology at Auckland University of Technology. I have co-authored a chapter with Dr. Robert Webb, who is a senior lecturer in Criminology at the University of Auckland. And we've come together to write a chapter called Risk and the Challenges in Moving Beyond Marginalizing Frameworks. We came together to write this chapter largely because Rob has been doing research in this area for many years and has been looking at risk factors and criminogenic needs. And as part of my PhD research that I completed last year, I was looking at conceptualizing risk and how that has reinforced a reliance of punitive approaches to crime. So we looked at some of the literature globally, particularly looking at the US, the UK, Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, to explore the development and application of risk approaches across various criminal justice jurisdictions. We argue that risk assessment and criminogenic needs models have dominated and they have detrimental impacts for Indigenous and ethnic minority communities. Within our chapter, we draw attention to the fact that these risk-based models and assessments ignore broader structural inequalities. So our chapter is separated into 4 sections. Our first section looks at theorizing risk and mapping the history of using risk frameworks within justice systems globally. Our second section takes a closer look at objective risk factors, and we look at how colonization-specific factors, such as substance abuse, lack of stable housing, having a parent in prison, have been incorporated and integrated into these risk assessment tools, which reinforces individuals to be held responsible for the ongoing consequences of colonization. Our third section explores the nexus between vulnerability and risk, particularly for young people. So here we look at the identification of young people as vulnerable and how that has moved to young people being identified as at risk of harm. And by framing and identifying young people as at risk of harm, this is used to justify state control of these young people. Our final section, in line with the book, is on decolonizing risk. And here we argue that broader social history and context needs to be considered before making judgment on risk levels. In particular, our final conclusion is that for Indigenous peoples and racial minorities globally, these oppressive institutions and the risk tools themselves pose the greatest risk. So we hope that this chapter begins to open up this conversation around challenging the concept of risk.